Welcome back to Foul News, everybody, and today I'm going to teach you the easiest way to change out your knock sensor on your 1999 Subaru Forester. Now this is the same process for the 1998 to 2002 Subaru Forester, and the other generations, there could be slight variations too, I'm not really sure, but this is the easiest way to get that knock sensor replaced, no problem. And it's going to only run you about, you can pick these up for about 50 bucks on Rock Auto, or I think about 70 to 90 bucks at your local parts store. Very simple tools you'll need. A ratchet. This one's just a flex head that extends. You won't need something this fancy, just a regular old 3/8 ratchet will work just fine for you. About a 6-inch extension. This is a wobble. You don't really need a wobble. Straight will work just fine because it really is just a straight shot down. And then a swivel joint, just because it's, as I did say, it's kind of a straight shot down. You may just need a little bit of movement down there once just to lock on. And a 12mm Peter socket right here. You don't have to get a deep socket. You don't have to get all deep and fun like that. You can just use a standard. That'll be fine for you. And then assemble your Legos as such. Plop her on down and then untighten her, and you'll see that in the video. Of course, you'll also need a torque wrench because you really want to make sure that you're applying the right torque to this, which is a 17.6 foot-pounds of torque, I believe Subaru calls for on these motors. And the reason being is you don't want your knock sensor too loose. If it's knocking around and everything, get it? It'll pick up some false knock and could throw a check engine light. And if you have it too tight, you could run the risk of cracking it and then just ruining your brand new sensor you just bought, and all your work would be for naught. And as I showed you before, a knock sensor. However, I already did this process. And this is what the old knock sensor looks like. The new the new knock sensor will probably look exactly the same. If it doesn't, you've bought the wrong item. And this one isn't cracked or anything. You could just see a lot of corrosion on the bottom, which was probably the issue with mine. And not to mention, the car's got 218,000 miles on it, so it was probably time for this to be replaced anyhow. So that's about it. Check out the video. The job, like I said, should only take you a couple of minutes to do. It's not hard at all, and see for yourself. I apologize for the horrible audio. This camera tends to add some artifacts, but right down there, that's the knock sensor. The harness is right there, very easy to get to. Sensor itself right there, incredibly easy to get to. Take a step back. It is on the EJ25. This is a 99. I believe they're the same from 98 to about 2002. It lives basically between the intake manifold and this air box here. It's pretty much right under this throttle linkage right there. And we're just going to drop this whole assembly directly onto that sensor. Now, if yours is a little old, she's a little bit of a rusty gal, it may take a little force to get it breaking. You can use BB Blaster here. Might help you out a bit. I've already broke this loose for the sake of time, and you just back this guy on out. Should be on it, but I've got a camera in my face, so I can't really see that well. It would help if you have a magnetic pickup tool. I don't know where mine is, so once this comes unscrewed, I'm just gonna go ahead and grab her with the old long ass needle nose pliers. Alright, she's about there. Now that her bolt's out, didn't take very long to unthread, maybe a couple seconds after I cut the camera. Now this is out, set this aside somewhere. Right here is usually not the best spot, but that's where I'm going to set it anyhow. And what you can do from here is you just take this old sensor, kind of lift it up out of the way. There's a clip right there. There's really no secret to getting this clip. This is a bit older. This car's got 215,000 miles on it, folks at home. So, what I've got to do is basically depress. I'm going to use both hands for this because it's going to be hard to film. Got to just kind of depress that tab there, and then pull this away. But don't pull the tab away with holding this connector, the cordage here, because you don't really want to rip this and then have to replace this harness or solder in something or do what you got to do, because that's a pain in the ass. No one wants to do it. Oh, if you got a sensor that did not have this harness with it, right now you just need to unclip it from about here. And if it would focus, that'd be great. Yeah, just from about here, which is a little plastic clip. Easier if you got a pick tool to slide under there. Lighting is shit. And then pop that out and then just pull this way. And she'll come right on out. Remember when I told you not to go ahead and remove or hold it by that? Well, it didn't really, but it slipped out of my hands and that's what I'm left with. So, connector came out. Fortunately, I can probably just slide that connector back in. This lighting is shit. I am sorry about that. And then once I slide that back on, I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I may just have to replace this pigtail. Once you place the sensor in the hole, you're going to want to put the bolt on there. You can usually get that in there with your fingers. Make sure you note which way the sensor is going. For this model, if you were to look at the passenger side over there and the driver's side over here, it's a US model. The back end of the sensor faces at an angled degree slightly towards the passenger side. Now once you plop that sensor in there and you put the bolt in, it might take a little while to find the hole, and that's alright, especially if it's your first time. So once you've got it nice and tight by hand, go ahead and just use that same configuration to tighten it back up. On this model, I believe Subaru calls for 17.6 foot-pounds, and if you don't have a wrench that measures in foot-pounds, that's somewhere around 204, 205 inch-pounds. So you don't want to make it too loose because the knock sensor is pretty sensitive. If it's bouncing around, it might read false knock and then put your car into a retard of an ignition timing. So get a torque wrench if you can. I've got just a simple Duralast here or something that I'm going to set to 204 inch-pounds and then tighten it up that way. Alright. So now that it's been torqued properly, what I'm going to go ahead and do is reconnect that little connector back there, start it up. You probably should have the battery disconnected beforehand. However, when I've done knock sensors on Subarus, especially these older ones, it does not seem to mind that the battery is still connected. For the best results for you, I would suggest going ahead and disconnecting the battery before starting this. Not starting the car, starting the project. Normally there's a mount of some sort that the sensor locks onto. However, this car does not seem to have a mount. I'm guessing the previous owner may have replaced the knock sensor once before. The knock sensor itself does not look too terrible. Normally on a failed knock sensor we would see cracks around it or something. The bottom is very corroded, which might be causing poor contact with the block, or the sensor could be old and just not working anymore, but there's no cracks as far as I can see. The last step is to get in the car, turn it on, and then see what kind of codes you got. I've got an O2 sensor code for Bank 1 Sensor 2, which is a downstream O2 sensor. Not that big of a deal. I am going to get to that probably maybe next weekend or something. And you can see the knock sensor here. So I'm going to clear the knock sensor. Oh, it's still scanning here. I'm going to clear the knock sensor fault and see if that'll come back. I'll probably get another check engine light just for this, for the O2 sensor. And then after this, I'm going to take it for a short drive, see how it is. It was idling pretty terribly. The revs would drop, to 500, and then the car would kind of shake and misfire a bit, which can happen with a bad knock sensor. I've recently done the plugs and the plug wires, the ignition coil. I did a valve adjustment, new valve cover gaskets, and it was running really good for most of the summer. I barely drove this car in the summer, but it was for when it was running really good. So let's go ahead and clear those faults. Okay. By the way, I love Torque Pro. I think it was only a couple of bucks from the Google Play Store. Makes things very easy with like a $10-15 Amazon Bluetooth thing. Alright, so check engine light is off. Codes cleared. Mint. So far there's no stored codes. Nothing's popping up. It will probably take a little while to detect that O2 sensor being bad. So in the meantime, take a little trip